When you're a franchise as big as Transformers is, you can't avoid a controversy once in a while, especially in a toy line, cartoon, movie, comic book. You're all over the place, and you're going to end up writing a bad story, including an element in the cartoon that shouldn't be there, screwing up something on the toy. For whatever reason, there's going to be some outcry, and it's going to be loud once in a while. So, while there are plenty to pick from, I have chosen 10 today to go over that I think is a nice spread of all the things that could potentially go wrong in a franchise like this, and 10 that stand out in fans' memories, or at least they stand out in mine. So, with that, here are 10 Transformer controversies, and we are going to start with admittedly a relatively minor one, but it was super frustrating back in the day. The first time we got to have all of Transformers available in home media fashion was the Rhino Entertainment DVD sets. These were fairly infamous in the fandom because, for whatever reason, Rhino decided that the original series just needed to be punched up a little bit. Their remastering actually added errors to the show that didn't exist before. So that was all fun to keep track of. You can go check on TF Wiki. It's a fun list to look through. But more egregious than that was a lot of added sound effects that Rhino at the time claimed were always there, but the original show was so poorly mixed that you couldn't hear them. The problem is, many of these sounds were nonsensical, drowned out the actual audio and speech of the characters, and were just too modern sounding. It didn't sound like they came from an 80s sound effect track. It was clear that they just threw them in wherever they wanted, trying to punch the series up. Now today, thankfully, you can go to Hasbro Pulse's YouTube channel, watch G1 Transformers completely for free, and they are not using the Rhino release, thankfully. Though I do know that, how should I phrase this? If you sail the high seas for your Transformers series, it's still the one that pops up the most, which means it's rather prolific in digital media format. Just watch it for free on Hasbro Pulse. It's easier, it's better. Sometimes being accurate to the original release can lead to some modern day problems. This happened when they tried to remold Masterpiece Wheeljack into Diaclone Exhaust. This was originally a character designed after a Marlboro-sponsored race car, and of course, the original Diaclone toy had a completely accurate paint job. It's a pretty infamous figure in the fandom because, well, it's a kid's toy marketing cigarettes, so that's not something that flies today. It also doesn't fly with the parent company who, upon hearing about the Masterpiece release, decided they were going to take legal action against anyone who released it in any way, shape, or form, unless the design of the toy was modified. Now, Hasbro Asia completely scrapped this release, and Takara ended up editing the overall deco in order to make it more acceptable and not copyright infringing. So this was a minor solution, but Philip Morris was still hostile toward this. So some retailers, TF Source in particular, decided that there were other methods to go through. People who bought theirs off of TF Source would actually find that their exhaust had been professionally modified in order to remove even the slightest semblance of being copyright infringing or conforming to laws against marketing things that could be for children with cigarette brands. Needless to say, a lot of people were not happy with their toy being modified without being informed prior, and thus the Japanese release, if you can get your hands on it, became really sought after. So, this was a whole mess to deal with, and yeah, if you can get an exhaust today, be happy, because it's not an easy thing to accomplish. I will never understand official media that decides that it needs to sexualize characters from a children's franchise. So we're going to focus on Transformers Legends Elita 1, who is a very egregious example of this, but there's other ones you could point to over the years in this exact same fashion. Flame Toys Windblade is a good example, though that one was modified before its release to decrease its assets, so to speak. So as you can see, on the left here, we have the original artwork for Elita 1 in Transformers Legends, which has a very disgusting, like, American comic book style where it tried to get boobs and butt into the same pose, no matter how impossible this is for one spine. This is typically done for a lot of female superheroes where some sleazy artist is trying to add sex appeal to a character, show off as many of the privates as possible. But really? You see the modified art on the right. This got a pretty decent backlash, and rightfully so. I hate when they do this. I absolutely hate when they do this. Why? Why would you add mammary glands to a female robot? They're for mammals, hence the name. I don't wonder why there are male and female Transformers. I wonder why the female side of Transformers are always so sexualized, and why artists are so eager to sexualize them whenever given the chance. It's degrading, is what it is, and we're supposed to be better than that. It's degrading at the worst, creepy at best. Thankfully, this doesn't come up very often, but when this one did, hoo boy, there's a lot of people not happy about this one. Yeah. Hopefully, I don't want to ever see this again. Hopefully, people have learned, and we're not going to be turning these characters that originated from a children's cartoon into sex symbols, or just sexual objects in general. Sometimes Hasbro's PR department doesn't check every name before they slap it on a box. Back when Power Core Combiners was a thing, they decided that this yellow combiner, instead of a more obvious name for a yellow IndyCar-looking vehicle, was going to go under the name Spastic. Now, the problem here is that in certain parts of the world, the UK specifically, the word spastic is, and I apologize to my UK audience because this is a really bad term over there. It is a derogatory term for the mentally handicapped. Here, it's just someone who's like really jittery and excitable. In the UK, it's a really bad word. So this one was changed so late into the production run, they actually had to sticker over the name Spastic on all the boxes to overrun, and this made news. This was so bad it made news over in the UK that this was actually going to be a thing. I remember Russell Howard's show actually talking about this and making fun of it because it was just that ridiculous. Oh, and the clip is on YouTube. Go watch it. Listen to the crowd's reaction when they find out. That'll give you an idea of how bad this is. It's one thing that, the name Slag turned out to be something bad over there. This was, like, they knew terminology was different in the UK after Slag, and they still decided to go with this name without checking first. I'm sure they go through a lot more checks and balances now before they pick these names, but this was a bad lesson for Hasbro to learn and a very bad look for them. Oh, but don't think it's just modern Transformers that have done things to cause a riot. No. The original cartoon was guilty of it as well. In Season 3, we were introduced to the Middle Eastern nation of Karbamya. Yeah, they named a place Karbamya in the Middle East. And as you can see by the sign in the screenshot, they went full on the stereotypes. This is a no. This is a no. This is disgusting. This was like just like that like casual racism that existed in the 80s, and like no one really thought about it. But someone who thought about it was Casey Kasem, the voice of Cliffjumper, who left the show when he found out this is what they were doing. Now, Cliffjumper survived the 86 movie. They still intended to use the character. After he found out that this made it into the show, he walked. And good on him. This was insulting to his heritage. This is insulting to a lot of people's heritage. And yeah, the depiction they had in the cartoon of the leadership of Carbomia, not any better. This is not pleasant. This is not pleasant to realize that this is part of Transformers history, but it was a different time. We were not aware as we are now. And thankfully, this is one of those things from G1 that does not come up in anyone's nostalgia list. We couldn't have a list of Transformers controversies without going to Japan, and then there's only one option to go with. So we have to talk KISS players. I don't want to talk KISS players, but here we go. For the unenlightened, this was what they did with many of the alternator toys that didn't make it before Vinyltech got canceled. This was Transformers paired up with very young girl characters who kissed them to power them up. It's a very Japanese concept. Not in like a derogatory way, but just in like, there's a particular level of creepy that only exists in Japanese fiction, and this definitely went with it. So the designer for KISS players, the writer, said he wanted to intentionally create something that was like really shocking, but you went too far, dude. You went way too far. Oh, and this is subtle. This is the mild stuff. There's some extremely graphic things in KISS players that makes it just like disgusting on many levels, visually, morally. No, absolutely not. This is one of the blackest marks on Transformers as a fandom. Now, there is a market for things like this in Japan, which is unfortunate. Different culture, different people, but you have to admit this is still really creepy. And yeah, this was catering right to it. Thankfully, KISS players, at least especially this portion of it, was short-lived. Stories that followed after this did not feature this particular element. The characters weren't, stripped naked or threatened by tentacle-wielding Decepticons. No. They were normal adventures for the most part. They got better, but man, it's hard to get It's hard to get past a bad first impression, isn't it? We've got to go back to the realm of female Transformers again, and everyone say it with me: Simon Furman should never write female characters. When Arcee was introduced in IDW, Simon Furman had the pen at the time, which meant things were going to get rocky. Furman's idea of incorporating Arcee into the original G1 canon, at least as far as the comic books go, was to have her built as a result of feminists on Earth arguing that there were no female Autobots. So it was really just a boon. It was really just like a creation just for the sake of satisfying a very like stereotypical depiction of feminists. It was not pleasant. It was not pretty, and this was worse. So Simon does not understand any concept of why female Transformers would actually exist in a race that doesn't traditionally procreate. So his idea for incorporating a legacy character like Arcee was to have a male Transformer who was forcibly changed into a female. This upset a lot of people. You didn't even have to be in the LGBT to get offended by what was going on here. This was disgusting for everyone reading it, and it was a very uncomfortable backstory to have for an Arcee, especially because switching genders made them literally insane and homicidal. Now, they tried very hard to retcon this. Later stories would tell that Arcee actually volunteered for Geoxis's experiment in gender alteration because they felt that they weren't in the right body from the start. They weren't comfortable in a male exostructure. It's a very sloppy, poorly attached retcon, and yeah, it's just... This was such a bad look. This was such a bad look. No matter what they did with G1 Arcee in IDW from that point on, you had to remember where she came from. And like we just pointed out, a first impression is hard to get past. This... yeah. Simon Furman is a fantastic Transformers writer, but a writer of female characters, he is not. If we're talking controversies in Transformers, we can't go any farther without mentioning the twins. Skids and Mudflap, two of the most unfortunate characters in Transformers history. These were a bad idea from the start. Even when we got initial samples and our preview photos of them, we knew this was going to be bad. So from the way they spoke, to the exaggerated features on their face, to the cliche things that they were depicted with, gold teeth, etc. And then things like admitting that they weren't big on reading. They came across as very, very bad, very racist stereotypes. Maybe that was by intention, maybe it was accidental. You can write it off as them just mimicking what they saw on Earth culture that they personally liked. That does not change what they were, and does not change what was going on. At best, it's cultural appropriation. At worst, it's blatantly racist. It's a bad look all the way around. These two were removed from the subsequent movie. They were scheduled to be part of Dark of the Moon, and then, the backlash was so bad they could not go forward with that. Michael Bay actually said at one time, he would give you $10,000 if you could actually spot the twins in the movie. The scene where everyone's rolling into Nest, they're in the back. There's a green and orange car just riding in the back of the Autobots. They're there. Pay up. Yeah. The backlash for the twins was so bad, there's a very big reason why you have not seen them in studio series, despite how big of a spotlight they had in Revenge of the Fallen. It was just that bad of a backlash, and I genuinely do not expect to see them ever, ever again. So I have something in my notes here that is just, it's not a description, it's not a summary, it just says Pat Lee in general. So, for those who don't know, Pat Lee was the guy and the main artist who ran Dreamwave when Dreamwave acquired the Transformers license. They were an indie comic company that was subsidiary to others, and then when they licensed Transformers, they went full independent, and basically, from that point, Pat Lee used the Transformers brand to basically run a money scam. Dreamwave ended up paying for his very fancy luxury apartment. He ended up paying for a Porsche that was company-owned until the company was facing bankruptcy, and then it just somehow happened to end up in his ownership. Also paid for his supermodel girlfriend. Paid for her a lot, as it turned out. Dreamwave was actually doing really, really well in comic book sales, but for some reason was not actually pulling enough money and was over $1 million in debt. Gee, I wonder why. Meanwhile, none of the artists were getting paid. In fact, many of them were getting charged money for artwork that they were sending to Dreamwave without compensation. So they were actually out money, along with being out a payday. So Pat Lee basically knew that the company was going under about a year before it happened. So a new company, Dream Engine, popped up and somehow ended up with a lot of the funds from Dreamwave before they declared bankruptcy, so they didn't have to pay any of the artists anymore. Yeah, Pat Lee is, aside from just being a scumbag, guy's kind of a terrible artist with a very puffy, weird style to his Transformers, terrible proportions. There's some really, like, comedic levels of misproportioned Transformers out there thanks to his particular art style. Yeah, the guy is scum, and the guy took advantage of a lot of people for the sake of making himself rich and living in wealth and excess. Is it any wonder why the guy is now in NFTs? This is just, all in all, just a really bad person to have been in the Transformers official capacity in any way, shape, or form. And to finish us off, there really isn't any other choice we can go with outside of the original death of Optimus Prime. I would argue that there's a lot of benefits that actually came from this in hindsight. There's actually a lot of good stories and a lot of good elements that came out of canonically killing off the leader of the Autobots. However, at the time, this was a massively controversial decision. Your lead hero was dead for the sake of selling a new toy. Parents weren't happy, kids were really unhappy, children crying in theaters when they went to see this movie. This was a bad look. Imagine being Marvel, and the first time Marvel made a movie, they kill off Spider-Man. Just because we have this new guy, we have the Web Kid, and the Web Kid is going to be our new main character. Hey, go buy his toys and comics from now on. This was a disaster, and Hasbro received so much hate mail over this, so many complaints from parents with upset children. They really didn't have any choice. Optimus Prime ended up getting written back into the fiction at the end of Season 3. And subsequently has never really left since. Yeah, this was the original bad decision by Hasbro. This was the original big source of complaints from the fandom, in its fledgling years, no less. And I think it's served as a warning point from now on. The characters are going to be important to people. Take care of them. And certainly don't let anyone kill off Prime anymore unless you're going to bring him back within the same movie. So that is my top 10 controversies of Transformers. Now, it's here's 10, not top 10. So this is just a general list of 10. It's just the ones I believe are worth talking about. There's plenty of others we could have gone into. Plenty of others I'm sure you know about. So let me know in the comments below what you thought. Did I miss any? Is there any that are worth pointing out in maybe a future run of this? Let me know, and I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I will see you next time. Guys, I am facing the most powerful enemy any YouTuber can face, the algorithm, and I need your help to defeat him. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Every time you do, we attack that algorithm and we drive it back until it can no longer defeat this channel. Thank you very much.